Hey, that's David Sobolov right there. I just like to hit the ground running is what I like to do. But
Sure.
first of all, I love the background. It's busy. You got a lot going on.
Yeah.
I
Well,
like that.
I have my pride and joy here. My 1940s NBC microphone.
Oh, nice.
I love. Yeah. My mom used to sing into a mic like that. She was a singer, a swing singer in the 40s,
Really?
and I sang into that microphone in the 80s with my voice teacher in New York City. And when his partner was dying, it just showed up at my door.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, how does it sound if you use it today? Is the
It
filament old? Is there some degradation?
it's a lot of degradation because he didn't know how to mail things and he destroyed it when he mailed it to me. So it looks good.
I guess, you know what? I guess probably for a really pretty penny, you could maybe have it repaired. But that filament is really delicate. It's paper mache, you
I
know?
attempted to have it repaired a few years ago, and cosmetically and electronically, but they could only
Yeah.
handle the cosmetic part.
Yeah. So
That's okay. It's okay.
yeah,
It's a good problem.
yeah. I still have, like, I have had exactly two microphones that I have used consistently since 2003, I think,
Hmm.
2004. And it's the exact same mic. It's the KSM Shure KSM 32 condenser. And I had one for about 9 years, and my son accidentally knocked it over. And
Hmm.
all I did was pick it back up, put it back in its place, and the filament was already shot, and you just couldn't use it anymore. So I bought another one exactly like it,
Hmm.
and that's it. I just keep using it, and it's all I need. Works
I
for
just
me.
with a new microphone today, this morning.
What'd you get?
Uh, well, I bought a Neumann, I bought a U87,
Uh
the
huh.
U87 standard that everybody has in studios. I had a knockoff U87, a Stam Audio from South America, and
Right.
it developed a buzz after about 6 months.
Oh, really?
And when you're in COVID and they want you to work from home and they hear a buzz, they don't cast you. So I
No.
had to go spend the money.
Yeah. How much does that U87 run?
I got it at Sweetwater. It was $3,500.
Okay.
That's
That
not
is
for
not
everyone.
cheap. No, it isn't. Now, what is the? Because that's not a condenser. That's is that a directional or is that a shotgun?
It's not a shotgun.
No.
I thought condenser. I don't know
Is it?
technically.
Okay, no, it might be a condenser then. I might be thinking of another one. What is it
It
about
sounds
that? Yeah, I mean, what is it about that Neumann that everybody loves? I mean, obviously the KSM I've got is only about a $600 mic. And it isn't always about price, but if you're dropping
mm,
3500 on a Neumann and every studio has a Neumann, then it's the quality you want.
well. It seems to match my voice really well. It's great for deeper voices.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't enhance it all. It just really provides a really true representation of what I sound like. So
Okay.
I'm able to do my full dynamic range and it picks it up.
Okay. Well, that's good because
That's very
yeah,
important information.
yeah, in your case, you've got like right now, if people hear my voice and compare it to the other interviews I've done, they're going to think, well, he's a little higher pitched. Well, a lot of this is because it's 7 p.m. And my voice over the course of a day goes up in pitch. I gain an octave by the end of the day.
Mhm.
I don't know why that is. It just is. If you catch me in the morning, I'm more textured and I'm lower.
I don't know if there's much of a change with mine unless I'm screaming all day.
Yeah.
Well, that happens at times.
Yeah. Now, these days, are you doing more of like for you? I know that you've done a lot of animation and video games. You have this heavy voice, and it's perfect for a lot of bad guys, creatures, villains, things like that. But have you discovered with COVID any new jobs coming your way, any new opportunities for whatever reason, or is it shifting, or is it always this sort of up and down dynamic you can never predict?
Well, what's shifting is that I'm really doing other things now. I'm still doing voice acting, but I wrote a pilot
Oh, really?
uh, with a co-writer, and we're getting it together to pitch starting in January.
Nice.
Animated pilot, so that's been fun. I had a great cast, and can't talk about it much, but
Of
that's been a lot
course.
of fun.
Well,
And
is it on camera or is it animated
it's
or is it what?
animation,
Okay,
an animated
cool.
pilot, and a lot of teaching and a lot of demos. I'm producing demos like crazy, and people want to sort of prepare for when they can hit the ground running again.
Mm.
I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but I'm really happy
Yeah.
people are preparing for something.
Okay.
I think preparing to keep staying at home, hitting the ground running is probably what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. I
Not to
tell you
be,
what. Well, yeah. I mean, before I forget, tell me, how does somebody contact you if they want a professional grade demo made?
well, they look for my website, sobolov.com.
Okay.
No one in my family's ever asked for it back, so I just keep it. I've had it since 1995.
All right.
And there's a section on there so you can hear demos I've done. And there's through that, or just my email, david@sobolov.com. And social media is all @Volobos, my last name backwards.
All right. Got it. Yeah. Because I get asked all the time, because I stream on Twitch. I play games that I'm horrible at. And people ask me, hey, how do I get into voice acting? What advice would you have? And usually I send them to D. Bradley Baker's website, iwannabeavoiceactor.com.
That's the first place I send them to. And most of you guys,
because
he has done all of our work for us.
yes, thank you, D. Thank you. You saved me so much time, and you saved my vocal cords from having to explain things. But when you go through D's website, because somebody, I don't think, should come straight to you and say, I have no experience, I want to make a demo. Because
Well, they can come
yeah,
straight to me for teaching.
yeah,
I'm working
exactly.
with someone right now that's never done it in their life, and it's kind of an interesting challenge for me
Right.
to try to get them to the place where they understand that it's not about doing a voice.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the common misconception. And I studied with Sanford Meisner. I was fortunate enough to actually study with him in the 80s
Oh, wow.
in New York City.
Mhm.
And everything that I do, I would not even have a career without that man.
Yeah.
You know, that he taught me to do characters and not do voices.
Yeah. People, they always make the same assumption, and that is, oh, well, it's using my voice for this or that thing. So look, it's acting, and you are deprived of your likeness in your body to sell the performance visually, but it doesn't mean you can't use all of that when you're actually delivering the performance. I was telling somebody today, in my booth, I catch myself gesticulating when I'm doing a performance, because that's what helps.
As long as you stay on axis of the microphone and you don't have any jingle jangle going on, then you're
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So if somebody wants to get into the business, first, yes, go to iwannabeavoiceactor.com. But then somebody can come to you and say, look, I've read up. I don't have any acting experience, but I really want to try this. So they can come to you, and you basically start by saying, let's work on building a craft, building an approach. And then when you're ready, we do the demo, correct?
Oh yeah, no way I would start somebody off with a demo. I've turned a lot of people away too that think they're ready. I don't want to send people out the door with something they can't actually use to get them a job.
Right.
You know, there's fees anyway, but you know, it's a marketing tool. It's not a vanity project.
Yeah.
And I also have a very, very deep sympathy for the fact that a lot of people are just taking people's money in this town, you know, in Hollywood. And I don't want to be one. I want them to walk out the door with something that they can actually maybe someday, if they're lucky, get their money back from.
Right. Yeah.
From what they've shown the world. But you can only do a demo where it's like buying a computer. Say you have your budget's $1,000. You buy the best computer you can for $1,000 because there's always going to be new technology next year. You do a demo that's a snapshot of where you're at now, and a couple of years later, you do another one. You know, when you're first starting out, the first 10 years or so, and of course, if you're far enough along, you're just using clips of things you've done on the air.
Right.
So,
right. Now, how's that Gorilla Grodd clip going for you? Because for me, one of the coolest things you could have done is this amazing villain in a super, like, it was a really hot show. I don't know if is The Flash still on, actually?
We're going into the 7th year now.
Oh man, see, this is what I use now. I'm obviously not a boomer, but I get okay boomer a lot because that's what the kids say if you're older than 20. And so
Right.
I am so out of the loop on what's on. I could talk about 2 or 3 shows and that's it. But you being Gorilla Grodd to me it's one of the ones where I was so proud to say, I know that guy, because that's such a cool villain to be. And it's so high profile.
Well, the wonderful thing about it is that they've been very collaborative and also very kind in terms of recognizing me as an artist and an actor.
Uh-huh.
A lot of times in the past, you would do a voice on a live action show, and they wouldn't even give you a credit.
Really?
And that's changing. And I worked with them over a number of years, and they kind of awarded me with a top of show guest star credit which is very rare for voice unless you're a celebrity. So I felt really
Absolutely.
happy.
Yeah.
It was nice to me like that. But yeah, it's also, I've had the same director. Jeff's been directing me for 7 years, and he's one of the co-producers. Jeff Garrett. We were able to develop this character together over the course of all these years, because he had to start out sort of being born and developing and not knowing who he was, and all these different feelings develop. It was a different Grodd than they had in the comic books. Kind of eventually followed the same lines, but at first he was born in the lab, and now he's becoming more and more intelligent every season, and we're slowly, incrementally making him more intelligent. It's been super fun to have 7 years to do that.
That is interesting. Yeah, because you don't normally get a 7-year arc to continue to develop a character.
No, it's well, it is really just one season if you think about it, because it's 1 or 2 shows a year.
Yeah.
Grodd is 50% more expensive than any other Flash episode because of all the CGI they have to do. So he gets 1 or 2 a year, and then he's out. They're just not going to have him.
Yeah. Well,
they like to, but it's too expensive.
Yeah. I was just talking to someone recently, Sissy Jones. I had her on a previous episode, and she's won a BAFTA for video game work. And we are of the opinion that one of these days, I think they're going to create an Oscar category for voice acting, because I think so, because you're seeing so much more CGI, and a lot of times you're seeing a person deliver a performance and they never had to show up on set. And so I think more and more as CGI creeps into movies more and more, I think you're going to notice that some characters are so important to the plot, and it's a vocal performance, that I think they would almost have to create a category for that.
Remember the movie called Her?
Her, yeah, with Scarlett Johansson.
The lead of the whole movie is a voice.
Yeah, only a voice. And I have to say, I never saw the movie, but I saw clips here and there. It's one of the most natural performances I've ever heard her give.
I don't know who, and if I did, I wouldn't say, but an entirely different actress played that part, and they replaced her.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, the doctoral thesis on that was Andie MacDowell's first movie role was in Greystoke in 1984, and then Tarzan, Lord of the Apes. And her entire vocal performance was dubbed by Glenn Close, because she couldn't lose that Gaffney, South Carolina accent, and she's supposed to be, highborn, living in an English manor and all that. And they said, yeah, we got to dub her entire performance. She recovered. She landed on her feet just fine, but at the time, it was a little bit ignominious.
Well, and you've done much more of this than I have, but voice matching is an interesting animal, because oftentimes the public doesn't know that you've done it. And
that's kind of like, when you do it for a trailer, they're never supposed to know you did it. Sometimes you're right. When you voice match, they're never supposed to know. A trailer is one of the sneakiest times they do it. I've had trailers where I voice matched a star, and they will get you doing 2 lines, but they'll take 3 words out of it. And they will take your lines and they will yank those words and they will slide them right into that star's performance, because they had to change those words. No one will ever know. And frankly, I forget half the time I do it. So yeah, I think people are so little aware of the environment that is that has all these little holes that are plugged in by voice actors, and they're never aware of it. We just sort of round out this environment for them.
There's one I talk about because they, for some reason, never had me sign anything saying I couldn't.
Okay.
The movie.
Which movie?
The movie Noah. It's a
Russell Crowe. Yeah, Russell Crowe.
I am Frank Langella's voice match for part of that movie.
Oh, really?
And you won't know when.
Okay.
There's the occasional phrase here and there. Darren Aronofsky was fighting for cut with the studio, and you had religious groups also fighting for changes. So they kept having to make little demos of changes they might make. So some of those ended up in the film, but it gave me a lot of work that year because they kept having different versions, and they weren't going to call Frank Langella in for 2 words.
One of the biggest boons for our bank accounts are directors that can't quite make up their minds. And It doesn't kill the bottom line to bring us in at scale every time.
When I did Halo 4, they had us do gibberish. We could just do whatever we wanted as long as they were keywords. And then the lawyers called them up and said, we don't know what he's saying. That might be something offensive in some language. Redo the whole thing. So we redid the whole thing, but it was a written out language that was similar to Japanese. And of course, gibberish, you can do it faster because you're making it up as you go.
Right.
But that particular made up language was another language. So it was so slow. It took us 10 minutes a line to get it right.
Really?
And here's my huge tip. If any writer is watching, any video game writer, if they ever want to listen to me, boy, it would make our lives easier. If you're going to make up fictional names of places, alien worlds, things on alien worlds, and no one's ever really going to see it in print, write it out so we can say it. Instead of having a huge glossary on the side, you're going to save so much time in the sessions.
Yeah.
But they don't. So you're going back and forth and trying to say it properly. They're wasting their time.
This has happened. Yeah.
Do that.
This has happened a lot, especially when I look at commercial copy. It'll say, all right, this is a 30, meaning this is a 30-second spot. And I look at it and I say, that's not a 30. That's a 45. That might even be a 60. And they want you to squeeze it in. It's like, look, I'm not even going to try. I'm going to read it the way you wrote it. And if I book it, we get there on the day, I know what's going to happen. They're going to start chopping stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's better than when they underwrite it, because I had that happen once. I did some spots for a newspaper years ago, and they had 5 spots, and they were each supposed to be 60 seconds long, and they were each coming in 15 seconds short, all 5. And they said, yeah, you got to have to hang on. We've got to write some stuff. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be here forever. I was there for 5 hours.
The longest I ever hung out on a commercial was a commercial it was a Disneyland Halloween commercial. And at Disney, there's a lot of hierarchy there, people who have to approve things sometimes.
Yeah.
And did the commercial, and then we were waiting for approval. We waited for almost 5 hours for approval. And they liked it. We went home, but they pay you. So
you just hope they have a good craft service table and a nice, comfortable lounge. I mean, these days, I've had sessions. I'm sure it's the same for you. If it's going to be a longer session, 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours, God forbid, at a certain point, they're going to give you a break. And at least at this point, you're just thinking, okay, I'll go sit in my other comfortable chair. I'll go to the kitchen, grab a bite to eat. I'll just chill. And it's just so much easier to recollect yourself. At least it is for me, doing this from home.
A lot of the stuff I'm doing is, I did a lot of stuff for League of Legends. I've got other video game things coming out. It's intense work. It's screaming. I basically tell them when I need a break, which is nice. And I think I would, again, suggest for the younger actors, if you're really hurting and tired, tell them you need a minute. Yeah. And they'll definitely give you one because they want you to sound good, and they're usually compassionate human beings. Yeah. You don't want you to rest if you need it.
Yes. Not to rip the scab off old wounds, but you and I go back 15 years, and we were on the Interactive Negotiation Committee together. Those were fractious times for the union because we had so much that we were fighting for, so many different opinions on how to fight it. I will say this. We didn't get everything we wanted that time. We know that. But the one thing I think we all recognized was afterwards, the producers and directors got so much better about asking us if we needed a break because we mentioned that as much as we could. It's like, look, these games are really rough on the throat.
I think the pennies only really dropped recently, Chris, in terms of them really truly understanding that after 2 hours, they're not going to get what they want anyway.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, look, you can keep me here for the whole 4 because you booked me, but it's really going to be declining returns.
Well, I feel really horrible for the older actors who had to do 8-hour animation sessions.
Yeah.
They stuck for that. They stuck for session.
Yeah, exactly. So the one thing I've done, and I have a luxury because I get to be on a wonderful show that takes pretty good care of me, and I've been on it for a while. Thank you, everyone at Gracie Films and Fox and all of you guys with The Simpsons. It's the greatest job I'll ever have. But I am very precious with those recording sessions, and I make sure that I don't do anything to stress my vocal cords before I do them, because those are challenging enough. And so I have largely backed off of most video games because there's so much effort. There's so much death and destruction and projecting voices. And the ones I do now they're in a much more narrow wheelhouse for me. But for you, your voice seems to be fairly resilient. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever heard you with your voice shot before.
It was shot for 6 months once, and I thought my career was ended.
Oh, really?
It's a Call of Duty video game, and
Okay.
they had me doing 4 hours screaming, like twice a week for 3 weeks. When that was done, I didn't have a voice for 6 months, and I thought my career was over. And I changed my ways I changed a huge way after that. I was very, very careful after that.
How long did it, was it 6 months before you were 100%, or was there a period of time where you really just didn't have anything?
It was 6 months sounding like this.
Really?
I thought, done. Yep, I thought I was going to have to go do something else in my life.
How did you get back?
It just came back one day.
Really? So I
don't know why I never went to a doctor, but I never did.
Okay. I imagine for starters, they probably would have given you some steroid shots and probably would have, God knows what they would have done. I have no idea. But yeah, hey, you're a braver man than I would have hustled over to that doctor like on day 3.
I had a couple of commercial gigs where I just had to have a few words and I could kind of get it together for a few words. But
okay.
It permanently cut off my high end. So any falsetto I could do previous to that, I can no longer do.
Okay.
And aged my voice and made it, maybe not that one gig, but just the accumulation of 80 or 90 video games.
Yeah.
Where I'm screaming the whole time. Not recommended, but it was an interesting life for a while.
Yeah, it's a balance that so many of us have to figure out on our own. It's one thing to say, hey, you really shouldn't take that gig. It's going to be rough on your voice. If that actor is trying to make their pension and health benefit, they've got to take the gig. They need to hit that threshold so they can live like an adult. And that's where it's really tough. I understand anyone having to take a job that they wouldn't normally take because they're right at that threshold, and you need that, especially now.
Well, and I also became known for how good I could scream. So of course I was getting more of these screamy jobs. And I'm fine on an animated show. Animated show, your parts, it's a 22-minute or 11-minute show, and
right.
A few pages of screaming, I can do that.
Yeah.
But I don't really want to do the 3 or 4 hour screaming thing anymore. I kind of limit that to 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess if you're going to be known for something, it's always nice to be known for something. But I think I went out of my way after a while to say I don't want to be known for screaming. I can't keep it up. I just know that my voice is going to suffer.
I actually called my agent, our mutual agent, once. One of there's many at CESD.
Yeah, there are. Yeah.
CESD. But I called one of our agents and just said, this particular casting director only thinks of me as a screamer. Every time I come in, I'm getting great roles, but they're all screaming. I don't know if he or she, I don't even want to say, thinks I can act. And I don't actually, for a while, I didn't go out for them because I knew it was just going to be vocal damage.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, in the meantime, at what point did you say to yourself, okay, I've got a nice career going. That's always nice to have, but we never know when we're going to work. There's so much, there's such an inconsistency in how our calendar gets filled. At what point did you decide, I want to start throwing myself more into these side projects of demos, of coaching, of writing, all of that? How long has that been going on for you?
It hasn't been terribly long. I started really teaching a lot about 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
And the demos started around then, but now they're really quite frequent. Voice acting, I've done a little trick where you have to remember whatever you do in the audition is what they're going to want in the performance.
Right.
So give them something interesting that doesn't hurt your voice.
Yes. I had a director tell me that too. And I was kind of aware of it. You kind of learn that just through self-preservation. But I remember thinking, if I don't want them to book me screaming, then don't scream in the audition. So the director actually told me, it was on a job we were doing, a job where I did not have to scream. And he said, it really is up to the actor how far they want to go. If you decide in the audition you're going to give them a 5 out of a 1 to 10 as your scream, then great. If they cast you, That's all they wanted. But if you give them that 10, they're going to expect it. And you, as a pro, are obligated to give it to them.
Well, and I keep mentioning younger actors because I'm saying things that of course. But
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to the audience here, whoever's watching.
Uh-huh.
You don't have to please anyone. You don't have to do exactly as you think they want. Just play a character.
Yeah.
Like perform a role and make interesting choices, and you'd be surprised that they're going to cast you. They didn't even think of that choice, and they'll cast you sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes I have no idea how much this has paid off for me, but I think I just do it because every now and then it's good to make an odd or a peculiar choice, because you'll see it in the copy, you'll see it in the breakdown. We want this specific thing, and they're going to get that from everybody else. And so you say, okay, I'm going to give you anything but that. And God forbid, I actually try and subvert your expectations a bit, but you're going to remember the one guy that decided, hey, have you thought about this? Because a lot of times, if everyone else is doing it, your chances of booking it, unless you were just insanely good, are pretty low. So it's not likely you're going to get it anyway. Give them something they didn't think of and drastically improve at least how they're going to remember you, if nothing else.
I'm kind of at the point now where I'm not openly defiant of size of specs, but I definitely give my own spin, and I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm defying them either, but it's like, this is what I think is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
If you like it, great. If you don't, I'll try something else. It's okay. I'm not going to worry about, making everybody jump up and down with exactly what they wanted. I booked one series lead and one series regular role with that approach.
Oh, really?
There was a long time ago, there was a show called Sabrina, the animated series in the 90s.
Uh-huh.
And the spec was they wanted East Indian. They wanted Indian, sort of cliche.
Right.
Cliche Indian voice. And I don't have that in my wheelhouse anyway. They'd gone through everybody else in town pretty much. It was the night before they were going to be recording.
Uh-huh.
And I said, you know what? This part is Agnes Moorehead from Bewitched. Because they're doing it. This character, this spooky jar, only spoke in incantations and rhymes, and I just imagined Agnes Moorehead, and the director jumped up and down, and I got it.
There you go.
Another time, I was playing a creature on a show called Judo, and I said, I'm just going to work on portraying his humanity. I'm not going to make him a creature. And he said, you were the only one out of 600 auditions that didn't do a big blustery creature. So we cast you.
Yeah. And out of 600. So yeah, imagine if you had gone the same way everyone else gone, maybe you would have still booked it, but
maybe.
Yeah. But I once had somebody tell me, you just never know. Always put your best foot forward. But I once had somebody tell me this is for I think it was for a Prestone auto parts, like a Prestone antifreeze spot.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just me doing a regular voice, just sort of my, kind of cool, laid back kind of announcer guy. And they told me at the recording, they said, we listened to 200 people and it was lunchtime. And we thought, all right, look, we're all starving. Let's go eat lunch. You know what? Let's listen to one more and then we'll go to lunch. And it was yours. And we were hungry and we heard it. We go, yeah, he's good. And then they went to eat lunch. And I thought, it's because they were hungry. And they said, fuck it, let's listen to one more. And that's why I booked it. And I have zero problem with that, because there are other times where I would have been number 199. And it's like in sports. The ref make bad calls for you sometimes, but other times he's going to make calls that work in your favor. It evens out over time.
One of the best commercials I ever booked was when I had lost my voice, and it was only 5 words. So I could find my voice for those 5 words. It was liquid plumber destroys clogged drains.
Really? And how long did that run?
Year and a half.
Nice.
It did well.
Nice.
But that was a funny audition too, because I'm not even exaggerating. There had to be 15 people in the room that wanted to have their opinion heard.
Oh, really?
I was performing that. So they printed the very first thing I did. Very first or second take that I did was the one that ended up in the commercial, but I was there for 40 minutes redoing that line with different people's direction so that everybody could at least direct it once.
This is another thing that, I mean, younger actors couldn't possibly know this. Older actors, more experienced actors, we end up encountering this and we learn the hard way sometimes. But sometimes there are things that have nothing to do with you, but they exist in that environment and you have to jump through the hoops. And you're right. When there's a room full of people and you can sense there's an odd dynamic at work, you realize my job's going to be harder today than it normally would be. But just go along with it because there are forces at work that have nothing to do with me.
I sometimes try to mediate those forces. There was one time it was a video game and there was a director. They were both remote. Before most sessions were remote. Most people usually in the room with you, but at this time, it was you. One was in Sweden and one was in somewhere, and someone was doing it at 3:00 in the morning. It was crabby.
Mm-hmm.
The other guy was like in Australia. So, I mean, they were both in crazy times. Our time zones were so far away from each other and they were fighting with each other over every line. And like, do it this way, do it that way, do it that way. And I actually intervened. I just said, you guys talk about it and then I'll do it. You guys talk about it first. Don't have me do each line, 20 times or you won't have me in an hour. Yeah, and you just have to sometimes be a referee if there's something like that's going on. It doesn't happen very often, but I've definitely been problems before.
I was once, I will not drop the name, even though it was not the star's fault at all, but I was doing a series of spots with the star. And of course, when you're doing a spot with a star, you're just sort of the straight man in the spot, and the star is there to get all the funny lines. And I knew what my job was going to be. It was going to be to feed them, which is fine because the spot doesn't work otherwise. So here we are doing different spots, and they're always running a little bit long. And the star is riffing, and they're taking longer to say their lines. I'm doing mine as absolutely robotically efficiently as possible. Mm-hmm. There's not a wasted fraction of a second. And at the end of every take, we're running a little bit long. Chris, I think you're just going to have to speed it up, man.
They can't blame the star. Yeah.
No, they can't. And I thought, look, I know what's happening here, and I know they're not going to blame me. I know they really know what's happening, but they can't say anything. And so every single take, still running long. Look, Chris, what can you do? And I just thought, okay, fine. And at a certain point, I think they managed to make do with it. And the funny thing is the spots never even ran. They just, we got paid, but yeah, I realized there, look, I know what my role is here and I'm in service of somebody larger than me. So do your job, take the check and get the hell out.
There was a Christopher, some famous Christopher, English fellow.
Plumber? No, he's Canadian. He's Canadian. Let's see.
No, but anyway, he would do occasional video games. He was a very famous, sort of very heavy, full of gravitas. This guy. Anyway, he would come in, and a producer told me about this, and he would say, "We're going to do this once, one take, and then we're done." So he wouldn't let them direct him at all. He just did it once, and then he left. So.
Yeah.
They got what they...
Yeah, smart. Absolutely.
And, another huge note, I think, for people out there is that, and I'm sure you'll agree with this too, even if you're doing this for 30 years, don't ever become a diva because your career will end real fast.
Yeah. Yeah. The divas are reserved for the people that cannot be replaced. And so, if, say, Tom Cruise comes in, and I don't believe Tom Cruise is a diva, but if he decided he was going to do some voiceover, he could be a diva and they would put up with it. But you, even though you're working a ton, can walk in there and decide, I'm going to make everything difficult for other people. Hey, look, I'm sure you're great, but they're going to find somebody else who is also great, who is not a diva. We are, we know where we fit.
I try to be humble and I try to be grateful because they don't have to hire me.
Yeah.
I'm a guest in their house and I'm grateful to be there. Look what we get to do with our lives.
Yeah.
We're very lucky.
Exactly. I know. And the way I look at it is I interviewed Rob Paulson a while back. And if Rob Paulson can be humble and gracious for every single job and who will, without fail, always thank the directors and the producers for hiring him, for casting him, and he does, then Rob Paulson, who is on the Mount Rushmore, at least he's on my Mount Rushmore for voice acting. If he can do that, then nobody else has an excuse not to be gracious and not to realize that they are not bigger than the project.
Some of the greats, the voiceover greats at times in my career have been so kind to me. It's brought tears to my, I was at a premiere with Frank Welker.
Oh, man.
And it was a Transformers Prime that we were doing, the Transformers Prime series.
Mm-hmm.
And they featured a clip that featured me, but I wasn't discussed. It was like they were the stars were, the people that considered the stars were on the stage.
Right.
I wasn't included, but the clip was pretty much mostly me. So he actually pointed me out in the audience. It was at Universal Studios. There were maybe 500 people there.
Oh, nice.
He said, "The voice that will untie your shoes, David Sobolov." And I couldn't believe he remembered my name, and B,
right.
It was just very, very sweet of him to do. He didn't have to do that.
It's funny. I've only gotten to work with Frank Welker once. I only got to meet him once, and it was years ago. And it was for a pilot for Mulan, basically a series based on Mulan. And they ended up choosing The Emperor's New School instead. So they had like 4 different Disney property pilots going. And
right.
Mine didn't get picked up. But I was there to do Harvey Firestein's character. Yeah, because Harvey didn't want to do it, so I was going to step in. And so I'm sitting there in the lobby over at LA Studios, and I'm just hanging out, waiting to go in. And this guy sits next to me, and I said, "Hey, I'm Chris. How you doing? I'm going to be Harvey's character for this." And he says, "Oh, I'm going to be the cricket." And he says, "Yeah, I do animal noises." I said, "Oh, that's great. You could do pretty well doing animal noises," because he was being very humble and self-effacing. And I almost said, there's this guy Frank Welker who does nothing but animal noises, it seems, and he works all the time. And then he said, "Yeah, I'm Frank Welker, by the way." And I thought, oh my God, thank God I didn't completely make an ass of myself. I only made half of an ass of myself. And I got to sit next to him and watch that guy do the noises that he could make were astonishing.
And him and Peter Cullen in the same room.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I'll never, that's super fun.
Yeah, absolutely. The number of people we've gotten to work with that just has my jaw drop to the floor. And a lot of times, it isn't just because I grew up listening to them, but it really is the scope of their talent that really does bowl me over. Mm-hmm. Like I felt that way with Jeff Bennett. I worked with him once, and I thought, holy shit, I think this may be the most talented guy I've ever stood next to.
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And I'm always in awe of D whenever I work with him.
Yeah, D's right up there too, And the fun thing is when you go to, say, a convention, and you get to sit next to him, do a panel with them, and before you know it, you're asking and answering questions alongside somebody that you realize is like, I actually can't believe I'm sitting at the same table with them. And it's so easy for me to fanboy out over situations like that, because I grew up really thinking about doing this one day. It's like, I don't know how I'm going to get into this, but somehow it's going to happen.
Yeah, I grew up playing French horn. I wasn't doing this at all. I toured the western part of Canada with an a cappella group singing. And it's almost like I was looking for something in the arts that would find me. And
right.
Voice really found me.
Yeah.
Wasn't looking for it.
How long were you up in Canada before you made the move down here?
Oh, I was born in Canada.
Right.
Lived there most of my life. Went to New York City to study at the Playhouse with Meisner.
Okay.
And then went back to Canada. I've been here 20 years, but I've been back and forth in Canada quite a bit too. I've got a few years on me now. So.
Well, yeah. Now, I've talked to a few people, like veterans of this scene, who have decided to move away. And they've just realized that, either it's because they think the system of going into a studio is forever changed, or it could be a combination of that and the fact that they've got enough time in the bank where by not being around, they're not necessarily going to lose all their work. So exactly. Right. Yeah.
Now that we're used to having people work at home, and they realize if you have the right equipment and you have Source Connect, it doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah. Now,
however, it used to be a situation where you didn't get to do that. They could do it technically. You didn't get to do that unless you really paid your dues.
Right.
Still kind of like that a little bit. They still probably. No, I'm wrong. I'm going to contradict myself. They will take new people from out of town now. that
Oh
they
yeah.
wouldn't before.
Okay. Okay. Well, hey, fair enough. I mean, my wife and I talk about politics all the time, and we keep saying, I don't know why it's a big deal to just let everybody vote. I don't know why they have to keep on saying, let's stop the vote, let's stop the vote. It's like, why don't you just let everybody vote, for God's sakes? Why are you afraid of not letting everyone vote? I'm the
We
same
could really
feeling.
get,
Yeah, no, we could go down that rabbit hole, and I don't mind doing it. I don't care. I talk about whatever I want on here. Um, I'm of the same opinion. Look, if somebody wants to go all over God's green earth to find the right voice, I don't mind who I have to compete against. I've been very lucky, knock on wood, once again. If I lose the job, but the project does well, fine. I've got enough going on where I'll be okay. Now, maybe I wouldn't have felt that way 15 years ago. I don't know. But if they want to go to somewhere else to find the right part, do it. I'm not afraid of them looking everywhere to find the right person, so long as they know what they're doing and what they want.
this sounds like a cliche, Chris, but you're only competing against yourself.
Yeah.
It really is true. You can't worry about all the other people that are auditioning. Just do the best you can. Play the character.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not even in the character. You're worried.
Yeah. That you must have, if you haven't seen it, I know you would agree with it. Bryan Cranston's, it's a very short video. He was being interviewed. I think it was at the SAG Awards backstage. And he said, for years, I would go into an audition as an actor trying to book a job. And I realized later, all I was doing was being desperate. The character I was supposed to play didn't know anything about wanting to get a job. It was a character that existed in a story and had a backstory and had a point of view. And I wasn't playing that. I was playing an actor trying to portray a character so I could get work. He said, you know what? Forget all that other stuff. Go in, play the character. Just play the character. That's all they want you to do anyway. Yeah. He says, as soon as I did that, I never stopped working.
Oh yeah, I work way more now that I'm absolutely focused on playing characters and not doing voices.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about, I'm not worried about what the character sounds like. It sounds like the character.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about whether or not they want that. I just want to portray it the way I think is true.
Yeah.
My acting is living truthfully under given imaginary circumstances, and I just think of animation as heightened reality.
Yeah.
So although they might have that strange Harvey voice, he's still telling a story.
Yeah.
He has to read the story so that we understand it and have people in the room with them in his mind and
right.
all those things. But I think a lot of young students too, they'll not only do a voice, but they'll try to do what they think is what they want. This is what's good. This is good, right? They want this, right?
Yeah.
Who knows what they want?
Yeah. It's like, hey, you know what? Yeah. I could tell you what I think they want based on my 20 years in the business, but I'm just as likely to be wrong. I don't know what that casting director is thinking in that minute where they decide to sit down and listen to yours. I don't know if they're going to give you 8 seconds or 15 seconds or 2 seconds. So you know what? You're better off going with your instinct. So yeah, the best thing you can do, I'm sure as a teacher, is teach that student how to develop a process that they can rely on so that they don't keep second guessing themselves.
Yeah. And so much of it has to do with telling the story. And I'm starting another class type where I'm making a game show, and the game is called Do I Believe You?
Oh, nice.
That's really all it is. There's so many different ways that you have to be believed within a script, but I have to believe all of it in order to hire you, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I have, thanks to having 2 kids, 7 and 9, who are constantly watching some kind of animated program, I am, whether I like it or not, forced to hear a lot of performances that I might not have taken the time to listen to. And it actually starts to give me a bit of a window into sometimes, yes, what they are looking for, or at least a general performance that suits this category. So they're really into anime at the moment. So they watch things like Kaijudo and I don't let them watch Naruto because that's the show I worked on. It's not for young kids.
They watch Kaijudo, my show, the one that's sort of
They might have watched that. I can't keep up with all of it, but they definitely watch Pokemon, and they definitely watch other sort of lesser known anime shows. And I started to notice with one of these particular anime shows they watch, I don't know if any of it's union, but I could never quite put my finger on why every single actor was giving the exact same performance. And I realized, oh, I don't know how they're being directed, but if I were to try and mimic what they were doing, it would be as though I were a PA announcer for every line. Attention, please. I am now saying this, and I want everyone to hear it. And so I don't know why it is, but I'm going to use this style. You will never defeat me. Now I will use this style, and you will use this defense. And I thought every single part is a PA announcer, and I don't know why the directors like it. But that's exactly what you hear in this particular show.
It's a style that was very popular in the 1960s. If you listen to animation, like Marvel animation in the 60s, that's what they sounded like.
Yeah. Superhero voice projects from from that barrel of a chest. Yeah, I know. Yeah. And to hear the kids, they're watching it now. It doesn't even faze them. They're so into this world, you know. And at the same time, my son at 9 is watching The Simpsons, and he's getting at least half of the jokes. And I thought, wow, well, I've ruined him at this point. I've got him binging that show. So, you know.
Does he know you're on it?
Yeah, he does. He does. And every now and then, this is one of the things that sort of makes my head swell, but he'll be watching an episode and I'll catch it and I'll realize, oh, I'm about to come up here, and my character will say a line and he'll stop and he'll look at me and he'll smile and then he'll go back. And it makes me proud, but my son,
That's nice.
My son is also a working voice actor. He had a job today. He has a job tomorrow. He's
Right.
seen himself on there, and I will look at him and I will shower him with praise. I could not be prouder. And I wish every dad could feel that way about their kid. And I know every dad does. When their kid makes a basket in the basketball game or brings home a nice grade or just does something that you didn't expect them to do, that's what it feels like. I love that.
It's great.
You must feel that way when you see some of your students that you've worked with be able to take that next step.
Well, even in the middle of teaching them, when they make a big breakthrough, when they start understanding what it is to be a performer. And of course, when they sometimes come back to me now and let me know when they've booked a big job or something. That's always nice.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, one of these days, you're going to end up working on the same show as one of them. I mean, how great is that going to be?
I already have.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, it was great. I was, getting tears in my eyes. It's like, there he is, Guardians of the Galaxy right beside me. I loved it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's your parental moment right there. As you realize, oh my God, you've gotten so big. Where's the time gone?
It was funny because he was playing a villain that was overtaking Drax's power. So he was bigger and stronger than I was. It's like the student is usurping the teacher.
I know. That is funny. That is funny. Now, the upside of what you're doing, especially with the technology we have today, is you can do it from anywhere. Have you thought about doing it from anywhere else, or do you really like where you are? Like, I never disclose neighborhoods. I don't tell people where I live. I say I live in LA. So we're not leaving our neighborhood anytime soon, but we do think about it. We do think about how available that is.
I like my neighborhood. I will be completely honest. I might lose a few fans saying this, but if Trump won the election, I would start thinking about alternatives.
I had the same. Look, my wife grew up in Venezuela. She tells me she watched Trump from day one. And whenever he would do something, she would say, Chavez did that. Chavez did that, and he did that. And I said, oh, you're exaggerating. Then I realized, nope, she's not. She's not exaggerating at all. And we did discuss it. I said, look, I'm tied to the show that I'm on. And as long as that show's on, we're staying here. And luckily, we're in California, which is almost an island. We're able to protect our way of life to a degree. But look, fingers crossed, it ain't over yet. This will...
And dates us, if someone's going to watch this 6 months from now and they're going to know what happened. But I'm hopeful.
I'm hopeful too. I'm confident, but I'm not overconfident. But I will say this, even if he loses, and I am not rooting for him to win, even if he loses, there are, I am disappointed that we have enough people who think it was okay for somebody to essentially thumb their nose at democratic norms that preserve the way of life that we have really come to take for granted. And so we've got to do something about how people just sort of were okay with things like making the press the enemy of the people, lying with impunity, even for a politician, lying way more than we're used to, and actually doing things that were in their own self-interest and not in the interest of the citizens, and compromising that. I never thought that we had it in us to be okay with that.
I don't think we do. However, I think a certain percentage of people are having their own reasons for why they're voting the way they're voting. They may be living in desperation and they want a savior. They may be white supremacists and they're looking for someone that promotes that. They may only feel that they can only vote for someone that has an R beside their name, and that's just their religion. You know?
Yeah.
And listen, it used to be a very different situation years ago, because I'll talk to anybody about their politics.
Yeah, me too.
But if we don't agree on facts, we can't have a debate. If I source an article in the Washington Post and a friend says that's fake, I have to do with that.
Yeah, we can't. We can't be in the same conversation.
A Pulitzer Prize reporter and they considered it fake.
Yeah,
I don't know even how to continue with that discussion.
I know, and this is where it's become difficult for me as well, because I have a dog in this fight in that I have a journalism degree. And when I learned how rigorous the vetting process for a responsible article is, when I see what comes out, I know that it isn't anything that recent, but it has happened slowly over time. Journalistic standards have slipped because it's become much more bottom line, much more commercial. And so they have to get clicks. Clicks feed the revenue. And in order to get clicks, they have to write a clickbait headline, which means they may write an article and produce a headline that has nothing to do with the essence of the article. And at a certain point, the reader begins to doubt the intent of the writer, of the platform they're reading on. And it becomes very easy for someone to come along and just start directly appealing to their bias. And you're right. Once you have talked to somebody who only reads media that comes from an echo chamber, you're not going to be in the same reality as them.
Remember the fairness doctrine?
Yeah.
You know, before around, what was it, 99 that came in? Or that went out?
We used to, we learned about part of this. We learned about it in college. We learned that basically, I don't know when they did away with it, but if you gave one candidate ad time, you had to give the other candidate the exact same amount of ad time. And they did away with that.
If it was commentary, it had to say commentary on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
You couldn't have Fox News and the fairness doctrine. And when that went away, it allowed them to exist. I've known Fox executives on the news side, and people that have told me about meetings with executives where they've discussed it, and they freely admit that it's entertainment. Yeah. It's right-wing entertainment. It's meant to be news. Yeah. It's meant for a niche. And again, if you want to make things for a niche, that's fine. I'm a capitalist. Go create your business. But like with the cigarette companies that were finally forced to say, yes, okay, these will kill you. But hey, aren't they delicious? Say, look, just tell the consumer what you're honestly selling them. Do that, and I got no problem with you, because I expect people to be adults. So if an outlet is just going to say, this is spin, we are not directly reporting facts, we are giving you an analysis of facts. If they say that, but they don't say it enough, they don't nearly lead with that enough, so they allow the people watching to think they're watching an unfiltered truth, and they're not. Well, and we do it in the animation industry sometimes too. There are some shows that are produced by toy companies. Oh yeah, and they're half-hour toy commercials. Yeah, absolutely. They try to pretend that they're not. I've been involved in some shows that were meant to be that, but we worked really hard against it. We worked really hard to create a great show so that people could be entertained while doing what the toy company needs us to do. I've had a cartoon character canceled fairly recently. I won't even say what it is, but it was because the toy wasn't violent, because the character wasn't violent. They wanted a violent toy. Really? Oh my God. Can't you have one that's not violent? Maybe that's the non-violent toy. There's the selling point. At least they made it, so I have one.
Yeah, well, you may have the only one. Now it's a collector's item.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a grand tradition of that, and I'm all for it. Yeah, you know what? Be honest about it. Say, look, this is I mean, for example, He-Man. There's a great Netflix series about how toys were made. He-Man was a toy long before it ever became anything else, and they said, we got to sell this toy. Well, how about a cartoon? Okay, let's write a bunch of episodes and hire a bunch of actors and animators. And then, you know, the toy just went through the roof. They made a comic book and a cartoon all so they could sell the toy. You know?
Well, you know, I get it. Like you say, capitalism.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. But I do want to tell a story.
Yeah.
When I'm doing a cartoon.
Yeah.
And I think creators of the show want that too.
Right. Like, I have a very, very tiny soapbox that I stand on when it comes to things I'll read for. And in the last 10 or 12 years, I have stopped doing political ads, or at least auditioning for them, unless I actually know what the hell it is about and I agree with it. And the other thing is, I stopped working for one particular company, and I won't call them out. But I'd worked for them several times. They don't pay a lot, but they were really fun. And they told fun stories, but they were based on Bible stories. And I'm not religious. I'm basically agnostic. But I have no problem telling a Bible story. If it's fairly innocuous and it has a nice message, I'm cool with that. But the parent company, they basically fought very hard to deny the LGBTQ community the chance to have marriage equality. And I thought, and it wasn't even the show that had anything to do with it, but they're owned by that company and they embraced it. And I thought, I just can't work for them anymore. And this year, they even came and asked, hey, when can we get Chris back on the show? And I just told our agent, I said, look, here's my reason, and you can tell them this or not. It's up to you. I have no problem with them knowing, and I don't say this with ill intent, but I cannot in good conscience work under those circumstances. That's it. And she just said, you know what? We're just going to tell them you're not available anymore, and they'll understand. They know.
Yeah, that's code.
Yeah, it's code. It's like, look, I'm no longer available to work for you. And they were such nice people. But my wife and I were talking about this too. She says, how is it sometimes somebody can vote for someone that is such a blatantly cruel person, and they themselves are nice people? I've met them. And I said, baby, people are complicated.
I heard Marlborough talking about that, and he did sort of an informal survey in his neighborhood, very conservative neighborhood.
Yeah.
And they said, all of them said they would not have Trump over to dinner or have him run any business that they were involved in, but they still were going to vote for him. Yeah.
And look, I've got family members that have voted for him, and at least one or two that I know of that will vote for him again. And my family members are not bad people, but they have their reasons, and I don't even bother asking him anymore. I'm not even going to have the conversation, because at a certain point, he will be gone, and I hope there'll be a way that we can engage again. Because if there's any message in this, is that, look, whether you like Trump or don't like him, I refuse to even entertain the idea that he has not divided people more. And when he's gone, we have to get back together again. And I refuse to make enemies for life over it.
Well, it used to be thought of as the United States of America. The word united was in that equation, and now we're in a cold civil war.
Yeah, we're definitely in a culture war. There is
a hot one.
Yeah, I know. I am hopeful, once again, I'm hopeful that we will have a definitive outcome and a speedy resolution to that definitive outcome. So perhaps I'm a bit too optimistic, but I gotta try.
It's freedom is a very weird concept if you really think about it, because if you get so free that you can actually impinge other people's rights with your freedom, then how free really are you?
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's kind of where we're now. We're getting into that territory now.
It must be interesting, because I have a few friends who are Canadian, and some of them have thought about going back because they just see the way that things are going in a way that they weren't comfortable with. But I'd ask them sometimes, what was it like living up there? And they say, look, it's not this perfect paradise, but we're a lot more civil. in our politics to each other. Yes, we have a right-wing fringe, and no, we're not completely free of racism or other problems, but they have a way to communicate with each other that I think we have lost.
There's one thing that we should do down here that would change everything. This 2-year election cycle just brings out the worst in people. The Canadian election cycle happens when Parliament is dissolved. They have to call an election, and it all happens within maybe 5 weeks at the most.
And they do that in because you're basically your political system is inherited from Britain, I believe. Yeah.
The Queen is still the official head of government in Canada, although it's really just on paper. However, the Crown, you're always looking up to the Crown.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister is the one that is the leader of the party that has the most seats in Parliament or has formed a coalition. If it's a minority government, a majority government has the majority. And that person can change. If they don't have a riding, if they lose their own little election in their riding, then they aren't Prime Minister anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've
they find a riding for it. They have a by-election and they try to find something for them.
Yeah, it is. We have a different system, and I've read a little bit more about it. I'm by no means a political expert, but it is really hard to make a democracy like ours work for a long time. Eventually, you do come up with a populist, and sometimes a rather malignant one, because sometimes the system can get so stratified that people do feel, like you said, they feel desperate. And so that desperation didn't come from nowhere. And Trump wasn't the reason people were desperate. He just saw it. He capitalized on it. And the democracy has to be strong enough to withstand that stress test. So
our checks and balances are sometimes conventions and not laws.
As we're learning.
That's part of the problem. They could go through everything that happened and try to tighten a few things up. It might help.
Yeah, I think that's what is going to end up happening. I talked to my father about this some because he was pretty high up in government and does understand it more than I do. And he said that at a certain point, he believes the executive branch is going to get restricted a bit because of this, because it's been shown that there aren't a whole lot of guardrails on it. And so I think if people can, for a minute, put aside whether or not they want to vote for Trump or Biden or Jorgensen, the libertarian candidate, forget about for a minute who you're going to vote for and who Dave and I have probably already voted for. Think about whether or not you think our democracy is actually working as well as it should. I don't think anybody would agree. I don't think they would agree at all. I think we're perilously close to straight up minority rule. And if the shoe's on the other foot, the other side won't like it either. We need to get back to a system that works better and less tribalism. Less people looking at the R or the D.
It's called tyranny of the minority.
Yeah. In 92, I voted for Perot. I barely gave a shit about politics, but it's not like it's not in me to vote for a brash billionaire who says what's on his mind. But there were guardrails to Perot. He had some ideas. He wasn't there to turn people against each other. But the thing that, for me, cements it, and again, this was an argument that I decided not to take to Twitter. I try not to get into this on social media. But for me, if I knew nothing else about our president, and I mean literally if I knew nothing else about him, I know these two things are absolutely true because he said them and he continues to say them. One, he believes if he doesn't win, it's because the other side will have cheated. And two, he does not commit to respecting the results of an election and a peaceful transfer of power. Now, I don't care who you are. If your candidate says those two things, you should run screaming from the room from them. They are as far away from democratic, and I don't mean democratic the party, I mean being a democratically minded person as is possible, and that is objectively true. I do not know how a person can say, I only win, or they only win if they cheat, and I will not respect the peaceful transfer of power. That person should be marginalized immediately.
The phrase "should be" has come up a lot in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And should be and could be and would be and it all, whatever serves political purposes is what happens at the end of the day.
Yeah. Although I can say with 100% accuracy, if every single person who ever got to run for the office always said and believed those two things, you wouldn't have a democracy within about 2 or 3 election cycles. It'd be done.
I think we're pretty much done in 4 years if Trump's reelected.
You know, I'll say this. We talk about plan B. We talk about what would we do? Where would we go? And this is something you're seeing around the world. This is not just in one place. Britain's having their problems with it. There are more authoritarian governments sort of blooming around Europe and in the Pacific Rim. So it comes and goes. It goes in waves. And we are currently in a wave that is anti-democratic. And you can find an enclave where it's not going to touch you as much, but eventually it will have to be reckoned with. And it is not something you can turn your back on for long. And so no matter where we go, we will continuously have to keep our ears to the ground to make sure that, like, look, I don't mind Republicans winning an election if I'm not voting for them. I can live with that. This is the first time I've ever voted for a Democrat in my life for president. I just think, I live in California. It doesn't matter who I vote for. On general principle, I'm voting for Biden. But I'm okay with the other side winning. It happens. But I don't like it when the other side is actively backing someone who is blatantly trying to dismantle just norms of government that we absolutely have to be a functioning democracy. To me, that's objectively true.
Do you believe in the Electoral College and the validity of it? Should it be gone?
I used to believe it because it used to work. It used to be the Electoral College would go with the person who would win the popular vote. It was rare that it didn't go that way. Now it's become de rigueur for the loser of the popular vote to still win the Electoral College. And I realize this isn't really representative. It's
not really a democracy when that's happening.
No, I mean, we're not.
The majority is not.
Well, we're not a pure democracy because pure democracy is 50% plus one. So, exactly.
It was a republic. It was never set up to be a democracy.
Exactly. We're a democratic republic, There are many different flavors of democracy. You can go to Wikipedia and get a wonderful history lesson and a civics lesson in how all this works. And so that's why people say, oh, Biden's a socialist. Well, he's nothing remotely close to that. But people should do a little
relief check. You're a socialist.
Yeah, exactly. Like, look, you drove on a public highway to get here. You checked a book out of the library. You have Medicare and Medicaid, the fire department, the police department. These are not private enterprises. So we should check that criticism. No, pure socialism is nowhere here, but we have many socialist elements of our society, and we should be damn glad we have them. And, we still have a very capitalist society. People shouldn't be afraid. But, I think we really do have to revisit how we're electing our officials if the majority of the people that vote for them don't get the person they voted for. Look, it's time for a rewrite. As Bill Maher likes to say, the Constitution needs a page one rewrite.
I've never been on a podcast where we've gotten this deep into politics. I'm curious to know, from maybe you have something deep in the machine that you're able to analyze. Do you find when the guests drift away from voice acting, the listenership goes away, or do they keep listening?
If I decided to look into it, I might come up with an answer, but I don't care. I could give them two fucks, It's like, look, I've said this before. I have people on that I like, that I know, that have a talent, that have something to offer. And a lot of times I'm thinking, you know what? I'll bet David Sobolov has a lot of fans who wonder what he's really like. Well, this is what David's really like. We're hanging out and we're talking. And a lot of people have a problem with Joe Rogan. He's controversial. But Joe Rogan's podcasts are just hangouts. If you want to know what somebody's like, have him go on Joe Rogan. He'll talk to him for a couple of hours. You may virulently disagree with everything they say, but you're getting who they are. And so that's what this is. This is Dave. This is me. We went from talking about how to book a job to, well, what the hell is wrong with our political system? I don't care if people like it or not.
This is a whole new world of exchanging ideas that we were sort of censoring for a while. In the 60s, you go on Password and they liquor you up backstage and you have a party out there. Have fun.
Yeah.
But after a while, the talk shows, they would pre-interview you and make sure that you knew what you were saying.
Yeah.
It was all scripted. And it used to be you go on a talk show in the 70s and you'd be smoking your Camels and talking about what you want to talk about.
Right.
People had fun.
This is a hang, and this is what podcasts have done for the world. I think they're great. And again, you have to just go and find the ones you want. And for anyone wondering, I'm fairly liberal, but I ain't that liberal. I'm not that woke. I do believe that you can go too far to the left. I have a problem with a lot of PC things that are out there that I think people tap dance around other people's sensibilities way too much. I think people need to learn how to take a joke, analyze content or context, and realize that context does matter. You can't just decide you're offended and then the other person that said something innocuous has to apologize. Believe me, if somebody on the right's telling me they are fed up with people on the left, I'll say, look, I'm here to listen to you, brother. I'm with you sometimes, but other times I'm not with you. So that's why I could talk to anybody about this. If I had somebody on that wants to tell me how great Trump is, I'll say, all right, lay it on me. Bring it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, because we're not going to do any good shouting at each other. I want you to tell me why. Give me why.
I have not,
yeah.
I've asked that question, and I've not gotten anyone ever that hasn't quoted me a talking point that I've heard many people say, some catchphrase, like "Make America Great Again," or something they heard on Fox News that has been repeated. And it's sort of like if Fox News didn't exist, maybe Trump wouldn't exist.
Well, I think it's safe to say that Trump needed help to get where he was, because when he came down that escalator in 2015, I thought, there's no way this guy even makes it to Iowa. There's no way he makes it to Iowa. What he is saying is pure grift. It is pure snake oil, and it is absolutely calculated to appeal to people who are just angry and nothing else. And fuck me, I didn't know what the hell I was getting into, because he just steamrolled everybody. But how did he do it? It wasn't just because people were angry. It was because he had an entire network propping him up and gladly carrying water for him, but only eventually. They did not at first take to him. They mocked him, and the Republican Party tried to get rid of him. They had 15 other people they would have taken over him, because those people they could control. Remember, Paul Ryan wouldn't even say Trump's name the day before the election. He said, I think people should vote for the Republican nominee. He couldn't even say his name, and he quit. That's how much they hate Trump. Now, some of them love him because they just, I don't know, they're just inclined to love that personality type. But no, you're right. He needed a media conglomerate to help him, because I don't think there were enough people for him to straight up win. He needed other help.
I encountered a fan last night online that got a little upset with me and said, I was your fan, and now I'm, you don't care if I'm your fan. And it was literally about people's right to vote.
Oh, really?
It was interesting the way she couched it. It was like, because I wouldn't want to lose her as a fan, maybe I should change my political opinion.
I usually avoid saying anything political on my stream, just because people have other people barking ideas at them all day long, and they're coming at them with their own political take on things all day long. And I want people to see me as, look, here's a guy that just enjoys what he's doing. He's playing the game. He's interacting with fans of the game, of his own work, all of that. But at a certain point, we reached the tipping point, because I saw an existential threat to the kind of life that my wife was seeking when she moved here as an immigrant, okay? My wife moved here as an immigrant. She learned the language. She got any job she could. She brought her family over. She worked tirelessly. She's the most American person I've ever met. She embodies the ideals that we are supposed to represent. She left a country that was dismantling the freedoms that she thought everyone should have. And then she saw in a nominee, and then later her president and my president, that same attitude. And she knows what it looks like. And now I know what it looks like. And I know enough history to know what it looks like. And I thought, okay, I'm going to say my piece. A person does not have to continue to like my work because of my political opinion. I don't care if you don't like me anymore. If I say something you disagree with, that's fine. You don't have to. And I have no problem with actors going off on a rant about their political beliefs, because they're people. They're citizens. Citizens don't get to make political commentary. Of course they do.
they'll say to a famous actor, "Go back and be an actor. You shouldn't voice your opinions."
Yeah.
Why should everyone be able to voice their opinions, like you said?
Yeah. Yeah. Just because you're an actor doesn't mean you don't get a vote. Just because you're an actor doesn't mean that you don't have an opinion. Now, if somebody enjoys seeing you as a character and now they can't see you as that character anymore, okay. Well, look, but that's on you. It's not my fault.
That's true.
I think Sean Penn is one of our greatest actors. I think he's as good as you can get. I also detest the fact that he carried water for Hugo Chavez and just, aggrandized the guy. But you know what? Who cares? I don't have to agree with his personal views to appreciate his art. I will go see his movies and enjoy them. I don't have to agree with him. I worked for Oliver Stone on one of his documentaries, and I asked my wife before I went to do the job, I said, look, this is the guy that made a documentary about Chavez. I don't have to take the job. She goes, no, go work. I can live with it. It's not a big deal. He's, I don't agree with what he did, but I don't want you to not work. And he's a skilled director. Go have fun.
There are, maybe not people per se, but there are definitely subjects that get broached in scripts that I won't touch. Like if something's extremely misogynist just for the sake of being misogynist, I don't really want my name on that.
Yeah, that's cool.
For instance, things that are extremely right-wing religious, where they're hurting LGBT people,
right?
Few people, and I just think we should be kind to each other.
Yeah,
we should be fair to each other, and if
the
show is purporting us not being that way, it's not really good for me to be part of it. But one time, we're going to circle back to voice acting here for a second.
Sure.
I walk. You do a video game and you don't know what you're getting sometimes.
Yeah, a lot of times you just get 50 lines to a page and you have zero context.
Well, this gets into a very sensitive area, but I'll talk about it anyway.
Sure.
So I walk in, and my part is a Southern white man who hunts down black people and uses the N-word.
Really?
In the video. And I'm like, they didn't want to talk to me about this in advance. Standing here having to decide whether to do it. And this is how I decided whether or not to do it. I don't know if people will agree with this or not. I don't know if people of color will agree with this or not, but I'd be interested here.
Yeah.
I decided I'm going to look up for my pages here, for my script. And if the producers are people of color, I will stay. If the producers are white, I want no part of this. And they were all people of color. So I said, well, if that's the way they want to portray the character, and that's what they want in this video game, then I will stay here and tell the story.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling they cut it, or I would have heard about this. But I sat in that waiting room afterwards. I couldn't even move for about a half an hour. I felt like I needed a shower.
Yeah. Look, sometimes you take a character home with you, whether you like it or not. And especially if you're giving an authentic performance, you've got to be able to, as they say, don't judge your character. Your character's not judging themselves. They fully believe in what they're doing.
I play a lot of villains. They don't know they're evil.
Yeah, they think what they're doing is the right thing.
Gorilla Grodd at first, he didn't know he was a gorilla.
Yeah. And just another gorilla trying to get through the day, just trying to, squirrel trying to get a nut, But that raises an interesting point, because I don't like what I'm seeing these days, where a lot of people want to, quote unquote, cancel voice actors for doing something years ago that they don't have proper context for. A lot of times, look, both of us have been given jobs that we did years ago that did not look exactly like us. I had no idea who else was reading for it. I had no idea who was casting it. I didn't know the context. I was there trying to work. I assumed everybody read for it, and I just happened to give the performance they liked. And I think people are too quick to want to condemn something just out of hand without even considering the context. So what you were doing is you're playing a character that obviously is a despicable character, but you said, you know what? Let me see if I can get a little perspective on this. Who's making the character? What is the character about? Why is this character here? Is it in service of a greater good? And you made your decision. Based on who I saw on the other side of that glass, they have to have a larger story in mind. This is not going to be gratuitous.
Well, I didn't even go that far. I just said it's up to them how they want to tell their story.
Yeah.
And it's a story that a white person shouldn't be telling in the way that it was being told. I didn't think it was appropriate. But if I had seen that at home and had a chance to look it over beforehand, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was there, face to
Yeah,
face.
exactly. And here's the one thing I believe. This is why I tell my Trump supporters, I still love you. I'm not going to throw a person away because of something they believe to be right. I'd like to talk to them and ask them, okay, how did you arrive at that conclusion? How did you get there? Because I'll be happy to tell you how I got here. And now, you know what? Maybe we should start talking about the things we have in common. And maybe we recognize where our paths diverge. So I understand, too, a lot of people wanting to protect people who can't protect themselves. I understand. But I understand sometimes you can go too far and you can end up making someone else a victim who didn't even do anything. I think sometimes there are people that are so ready to strike a blow for justice that sometimes they're using a hammer and not a scalpel. So
I had a voice student once who was doing a demo, and she walked out in the middle of the demo. And she walked out because I was trying to help her be better at what she was doing. And she really didn't want to hear anybody giving her direction. She just wanted to do it the way she wanted to do it. So I guess it kind of vaguely applies, but she was offended that I was telling the truth. She didn't really want to face that it was true.
Oh my God. Well, there's not a whole lot you can do for that person. It's not really about coaching acting at that point. It's about trying to let them know that, look, this art we're making is collaborative. And so if you're not willing to work with somebody on your performance, you're in for a bumpy ride.
But I brought that up because it's interesting how people see each other based on their perspective.
Yeah.
She started tweeting about me, saying I was a horrible person and that I was abusive. That was kind of upsetting. But luckily, it was only really her and me that knew who she was talking about. She didn't mention any names.
Okay.
Like I'm mentioning her name now.
Right. Exactly. See, you're being considerate, and this is I want people to realize that. Let's say you're a voice actor trying to build your career. Well, I talked to Phil Lamar about this. There's so many young voice actors out there who spend a lot of time getting their social media going. Hey, that's great. That's great. But guess what? Your social media doesn't mean anything if you don't have a body of work that you can sell to a buyer. Now, you might have social media that is so huge, they'll book you because you'll put eyeballs on a project. But trust me, if you're not any good, it's not going to last. So be careful what you're putting out on social media, not just how much time you're putting into it, but like in David's case, if you're going to have a problem with somebody, be careful what you write. It's there forever.
I also think you can lose your entire career with one tweet. It's been shown many times to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I really do hope we reach a point where a person is allowed to make a mistake and realize that, look, every single thing this person is not wrapped up in one tweet. Maybe they may not even be wrapped up in a month of tweets. A person can go through very challenging times in their life, and they can be a different person for a while. They can be stressed out. They can be angry. They can be mentally unwell. And a lot of times they end up expressing it through social media. I hope we learn how to be a bit more forgiving,
Yeah, I wish that people had been more forgiving to Al Franken because I thought he was a great politician.
You know what? I do too, because I find myself rooting for Democrats because of what's going on. And I thought, you know what? Democrats, you fucked that one up royally. Franken was going to be a really valuable asset in the Senate. And he did not deserve to... He did not deserve that treatment. That's just, and I don't care who disagrees with it. That guy was not, whatever it was he did was not equal to what was served up to him at all, in my opinion.
Survived it. If he had just hung out there for another few weeks, he probably would have survived it.
I think he might have. I think the governor of Virginia survived something that was pretty rough. I mean, my God, they had a picture of him in blackface, and guess who stood up for him? Black voters in Virginia. They said, hey, the guy made a mistake. We're not going to get rid of him. Are you crazy? Okay. Yeah, leave room for somebody who is really against what we're about to come in. So, yeah, be careful. There's a great line, and I use it whenever I can. It's in the movie A Man for All Seasons with Paul Scofield. There's a great line where this famous barrister in England, and this is in the 16th century, is talking to his future son-in-law, who is a lawyer who's a crusader. And he says, you're willing to do anything to get the bad guy. You're willing to do anything to get a criminal. And he says, I would cut down every law in Britain to get the devil himself if I could. And the main character says, and having cut down every law, what would protect you from the ill winds that would blow? So people, be careful when you go nuclear in pursuit of justice, because what are you going to do when you wipe out every tree? What's going to protect you from the ill winds that blow? Have compassion. Be understanding. Some people really do need a nuanced take on things, and I hope we get that more. It took me not very long to have a nuanced take on Trump because he lays it all out. There's no nuance with him. He's very obvious, but I try to have a nuanced take on the people that support him.
Yeah, I kind of get a sense of the psychological issues that come into play when you have a media outlet that is actually trying to control people. Yeah. And I think that's really a lot of what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And really, Fox News didn't exist. He wouldn't either.
Yeah. I to be fair, as somebody with a journalism degree, I see the niche that is filled with each different outlet. CNN is much closer to the middle, but they do have more of a left slant. MSNBC is further down the trough as far as that goes. And then further along the other side of the trough. And I don't mean this in any porcine way. I'm not ascribing animal characteristics. I'm describing a spectrum. But on that spectrum, you have different points that are served by these outlets. Why? Because it's a purely business decision. The shows you are watching that talk about politics are there for purely commercial decisions. But the people that own them decided we're going to fill this niche. Now, if you want something that is largely unfiltered, try BBC America, try NPR. They're pretty dry. They'll give you the real skinny. But if you start going to cable news, you're getting a filter. You should be aware.
News used to be very dry years ago.
It used to be what they call the lost leader. A news organization for a network was not something that needed to make money. It was seen almost as a public utility. Mm-hmm. That is gone. So the citizen has to actually take some responsibility. Citizens need to learn how to read news. They need to learn to see the angle that it's coming from, and they need to learn to see the ways that algorithms pull them into an echo chamber, and you need to learn how to get out of an echo chamber so you can tell what reality is.
It's really a course they need to teach in high school.
Yes, we need more civics. We need more. We need to teach people about finance a little bit better so they can learn how to manage their money, because we are moving quickly into a gig economy. My sister-in-law has worked for corporations her whole adult life. It used to be they'd hire her for longer stretches and she'd get more benefits. Now it's all subcontractor. You don't get the same benefits. You don't get anything. They will cover almost nothing for you. She's got to learn how to market herself. She's got to learn how to curate her social media. She's got to learn how to take care of her money, because her retirement's not going to be taken care of. It's got to be all her. So, yeah, I think people forget. I mean, like in my case, we're raising 2 children, but we're raising citizens. I want 2 kids that are happy, well-adjusted kids, but I also want them to be a net positive for society. So it isn't just about them. It's about the people around them that they're going to impact.
That's great.
Yeah, I try. Look at where we went. We spent this like 45-minute chunk of talking about, your boilerplate voiceover stuff. And then somewhere, boom, hard left turn. I love it.
It's not that kind of show. You let things just free flow, and politics is on everybody's mind this week.
It is, and it should be. I mean, and by the time this comes out, this will be in a couple of weeks or so. I think it's never too late. It's never too early to discuss what is going on, either nationally or even in your locality. Like, look, if you don't have an opinion on the president, first of all, I don't know how the hell you can not have an opinion. But John Fugelsang, who I like a lot, says this a lot. He says, you know what? Act locally. You need to know who's on your city council. You need to know who your mayor is, who your state senators are. You need to know these things, because what those guys do affects your life way more than what happens in D.C. You'd be surprised. So if you got a problem, a lot of times you can take it up with a person that lives about 2 or 3 miles away from you and get results. So
Oh yeah, well, Adam Schiff is my congressperson. He's helped a lot with little things around
Shifty
here.
Adam Schiff. David, I
Yeah.
want to tell you about Shifty Adam Schiff. Right? Yeah.
Hey, Joe, Adam, Shifty Adam,
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, look,
Baby Joe.
this is what we do here on the old Streamcast. It's grip it and rip it. We go wherever you want to go. I don't want people to think that I'm afraid to talk about certain things. It's just sometimes I feel like it, sometimes I don't. You know,
Well,
and
and the
yeah,
we're both obviously the point in our lives where we're not really worried about any blowback. We're just going to say what we want.
yeah. I mean, if somebody wants to unfollow me over this, I don't mind. I understand. Believe me, you're doing me a favor. One of these days, I'm going to say fuck it all for social media anyway and say, I'm done. Fine. If you don't want me on, everybody can cancel me. I'm off. Okay, whatever.
They, they expect us to use social media to promote the programs that we're in and all that, and I do.
Yeah, I do
But
too.
at the end of the day, I think I'm at an age where I'm almost grandfathered because I'll never have enough followers to really be significant.
Yeah,
I'm not a young guy. It's getting hundreds of thousands of followers.
no, I'm a micro influencer at best, and I always will be, and that's fine. I don't mind that. I'm fine with it because believe me, the more you have, the more you stand to lose. Because, like you say, in social media, that's how fast they can take it from you.
Mm-hmm.
That's how fast you can get deplatformed. I really hope people begin to understand that the marketplace of ideas is going to have flavors that you may not like, but that doesn't mean you need to get them all taken down. You don't make the guy on the ice cream truck throw out every flavor you don't want. Save those for the other kids. All right?
Yeah,
It's okay.
Trump is also teaching people of many bad lessons, but one bad lesson is that you can't challenge each other.
Yeah.
You don't like somebody's opinion. Like his way is, my way or the highway.
Right.
But it should actually be that you're open to someone being different, and if they challenge you, you have a debate with them, a real
Exactly.
debate.
Yeah.
You
And
know your point of view, and you try to win, but you don't win by just excluding and just saying whatever they're saying is not worth listening to.
right. This is another thing that is objectively true about him. He has said this repeatedly. He tells you to not believe anything about him that is negative. And trust me, there is no one that can argue this point. It is objectively true because he constantly says it. Everything that is unflattering about him is fake news. Now, this is a classic authoritarian play, and you should run screaming from the person that says it. If you personally knew someone that said to ignore every negative thing that is said or written about them, and there are copious amounts of things said and written about them, you should be extremely skeptical of that person. Not least, allow them the keys to the kingdom.
They don't hear or see the copious things that are written against them. They're only seeing one
Also
outlet.
true. Yeah, also true. I hope there will be some nexus of reality that we can all meet at. And because I want people to know, if you disagree with me, that's fine. I don't mind that. I can't wait to talk to you about it. Let's talk about it. Tell me why. Start giving me the reasons why, and we can start to have a dialogue about it. But if your answer to all those problems you have is to elect somebody that ticks all those boxes I talked about before, you're getting a lot more than you think you're getting. You're getting it's like having a roach problem and getting a Wolverine as a pet to take care of the roaches. This is we go from voice acting to civics to Lord knows what. We cover it all here. Social issues. Tune in next week. We'll tell you how to I don't know, put aluminum siding up on your house. We'll go everywhere.
And if I came back, we might debate anchovies and pineapple on pizza.
Anchovies, yes. Pineapple, what the fuck? I don't know. I don't get it. Why would you do that? Yeah, you're good with both? Blasphemer! You should be canceled, David Sobolov. You should have everything taken away from you because you're worse than Hitler, okay?
I'll be pineapple.
There, I said it. Okay, yeah. Right. So, hey, here's what Dave and I want to leave you with. We're not angry at you. Hopefully, you're not angry at us, but if you are, hey, that's cool. You do you. Unfollow. It's okay. We can live with it. We don't want you to lose your chance to express yourself. That's my feeling.
If anyone is seeing this before the election, vote. However you feel about things, vote.
Yeah,
it's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to vote for Trump, and if you think that is how you express yourself as an American, do it. I'll drive you to the polling place. We live in California, so I'm not worried about him winning California. But hey, here's the lesson. My grandfather, lifelong Democrat, in 1988, drove me to the polling place on election day. He voted for Dukakis. I voted for Bush. And I said, hey, Grandpa John, you're driving me there. You know I'm not going to vote for the guy you want. He says, but this is a democracy. And that's what you do. He negated his vote, but he did it out of a sense of civic duty. And God, I loved him for so many reasons. And that was one of them. And I don't think it's asking too much to be a little bit more like Grandpa. Grandpa wasn't perfect, but hey, if he did that, there's something we could all learn from.
We need to let everyone vote, no matter how they're going to vote.
Yeah, let everyone vote. You know what? We don't know what country we have until we let all the people who are allowed to vote. If you really want to know what you're looking at, do it. It's like going to the doctor. Get your blood work done. I know you may be scared of the results, but get a complete picture. Then you know what to do. Then you know what you're working with. There we go. Right. We have discussed the body politic and the body. That's how we button it. So,
all right.
David Sobolov, I can't believe where this all went. Look at this.
Well, here we go. Now we know a little bit more about each other than we did before.
Absolutely. And so does everyone watching this. So, folks, find David Sobolov. Once again, tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me at my website is sobolov.com. My social media is at Volobos, my last name backwards. I don't know how you find me on Facebook, but it's by my name.
Okay. All right.
It's weird. Facebook, I have a verified and an unverified, and they won't combine them. I'm on both. They're both me.
Don't get me started on Facebook. That's another 2 hours right there. So we just won't go down that rabbit hole.